Welcome to From the Cheap Seats. My name is Charlie Jimenez, and before we get started today, I would like to give you a quick word from the Bible. Today we'll be reading John chapter 15, verses 4 through 6. Unless it remains in the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown aside like a branch and he withers. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, it means the only way to remain on the branch is to remain on the vine is to maintain a consistent relationship with the Lord. For us to do that, we have to worship him and glorify his name, not just on Sundays. We must be able to do it outside of the church. For if we do not, we will be cut off because he does not know us. He wants to know us, so we've got to we've also got to make him known. For we must worship and glorify our God inside and outside of church. All right, now let's get to the stuff you came for. Here are the top 5 teams with the most wins since 2010. This includes playoffs. Number 5, we've got the Spurs. Number 4, we've got the Thunder. Number 3, we've got the Miami Heat. Number 2, we've got the Warriors. Number 1, we've got the Celtics. So there are 4 teams on this list with the championship and 1 without. And that team is the Thunder, who have a chance to win their first title since they were still in Seattle since 1979. And they will most likely win it convincingly. Don't get me wrong. I think the Pacers, I think they're going to make it. If they don't, you'll see. I think the Pacers are a phenomenal team, but their scheme is mostly based on a beautiful game scheme, which is pass as much as you can. And while that does work for now, outspeeding opponents, the Thunder are just as fast, and they are even better on defense. I think they have the ability to shut this team down and to keep them from passing the ball. And putting them in a lot of ISIS situations, I think if that finals matchup comes around, I think Pascal Siakam will be just about the best offensive player they have to handle it. But even then, it gets a little tricky when Chet Holmgren has similar abilities but is way taller. And their passing lanes are mostly going to get cut off, so if they go to the finals, I wouldn't expect too much from Tyrese Halliburton in terms of assists. I mean, their defense will also slow down the Pacers, and that's probably the only way the Pacers can win it. Either way, if we get this matchup, it'll most likely be a track meet with all sorts of transition baskets. However, if the Knicks somehow pull off a 3-1 comeback, then I doubt they will win the finals. And I say that because after we saw the 73-win Warriors overcome a 3-1 conference finals deficit, they went on to lose in the NBA Finals, blowing even a 3-1 lead. That just shows you how emotionally and physically exhausting a 3-1 comeback is. And that's why that's why it's so rare nowadays. And even the teams who come back from it, they often lose. We saw the Nuggets one year overcome 2 3-1 deficits, and they lost in the conference finals, even though they were probably the better team. Also, I do not want to hear criticism toward a 23-year-old who has made back-to-back Western Conference Finals. Conference Finals is something itself, but add Western to it, where you've got the LA Lakers, you've got the Warriors, you've got the Nuggets, now you've got the Thunder. It's stacked, to say the least. And the fact that Anthony Edwards has done it twice is impressive, although you could make the argument the Warriors should have won that matchup. And I think they could have. I really do think they could have if they had Steph. But they didn't. So, and that's Steph's age starting to catch up to him now and give him more injuries. And also back to Anthony Edwards, there's only one thing that really concerns me, and that was his attitude afterward. Afterward, in a press conference interview, he said he is fine with this. He has more than enough time to keep on doing this. So here's what he doesn't realize. Doing this and getting to that spot is harder than he thinks. He had to go through a team that had barely gotten its roster together, and it had a rookie head coach, and a team whose best player was injured. And while they did put up a good fight against the Thunder, and I give them a round of applause for that, they still got taken down in 5 games like they did last year. And that's no shot at Anthony Edwards, but he needs to realize you're going to have to do what Kobe says and have a Mamba mentality about it. And I'm not saying a positive attitude about this is a bad thing, but he needs to remember there are other teammates that want this too. Mike Conley, he's been playing this game for forever, and this was probably his best chance. And next year, with Western Conference teams getting even better, the Spurs might come back fully healthy, And I think they're going to be a contender for the NBA title. I know it's early to call that, but with what they already have around them, it's impossible not to call them that. And then maybe one last hurrah from the Warriors if they get Giannis. He needs to realize that it's hard to get to the conference finals. All right, so real quick, while we're on the topic of the Thunder, let's talk about their scheme in a tactical timeout, or rather a scheme that would possibly smoke this Thunder's team. And I know saying smoke is a pretty harsh way to say it, but let's go back to 1974 when Phil Jackson was learning from his mentor, and he learned something called the triangle offense. The triangle offense is the base setup for triangle offense. You have two players by the post, and they're big men, right? But they have to be passing bigs. And so then you have these other players right here like guards. So for those of you who don't know, head coach Phil Jackson coached the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and the LA Lakers with Shaq. Shaq wouldn't be on the Lakers if they didn't get Phil Jackson. And so what you're able to do with a setup like this, say your big has the ball, right? Well, what can you do? You can have someone come over here, set a cut, and get an open shot easily. Or this person who just screened, they can cut to the basket and they can have a little backdoor pass to get open, right? That's a pretty easy scheme to get easy shots, and all you really need is a passing big man. So there was an evolution of this in 2014 called the split cuts. And what are the split cuts, you asked? Well, I'm glad you asked. The split cuts were a scheme invented by the Golden State Warriors' Steve Kerr. And for those of you who don't know, Steve Kerr entered his rookie season head coaching. He had a 73-win Warriors team. Well, no, 67. And then his first 3 years were 67 wins, 73 wins, and 67 wins again. That is the most in 3 seasons by an NBA team ever. And so what he was able to do is he was able to take this scheme, right? This player right here is Draymond Green with the ball. And what Draymond Green would do is he'd be in the post, and he'd have his players do this. Pretend like this is Klay Thompson coming over here, setting a cut for Steph Curry. Steph Curry would cut over here, and it's a 3-point shot open if he wants it. But then Klay Thompson would cut in and get a backdoor pass. But then you have the weak side right over here where you got 2 players open for 3. Well, add Kevin Durant to the mix. What ended up happening was Draymond could either pass it to either of these two or a cutter, or he could pass it all the way over to Kevin Durant and he could get a wide open 3-pointer or mid-range shot. And Kevin Durant was able to even work as the big if he needed to. And I think that type of scheme with the speed that Warriors team had, because you may be wondering, why don't other teams run it? Well, because they don't have the personnel to run it. I saw the Sacramento Kings win some of this in 2022 to 2023 season when their offense was spectacular with Domantas Sabonis, but they didn't have the 3-point shooting to keep up with it. Buddy Hield was able to be somewhat of a substitute, but it wasn't working out too well. And so with Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry, and the Draymond Green as the passer, and you have a slasher in Andre Iguodala, that's why I think that Warriors team was probably the greatest ever. Steve Kerr got that off of his mentor Phil Jackson, who he played for with the Chicago Bulls. And the Chicago Bulls were able to use that with Scottie Pippen as the passing big man. You see how it works, right? And that's why it's such a deadly scheme. But you have to have good cutters, good shooters, and a good passing big man. That's how that works. And so if the Thunder win against this, the Thunder have a small ball lineup, not dissimilar from what the Warriors had, except instead of super potent on offense, it's super potent on defense. But I do not think they would be able to guard this type of Warriors team because a lot of people have speculated this matchup. I think they would force the Warriors will force the Thunder to choose death by 10 threes, 15 threes, or a million cuts from layups. Anything. But it makes virtually everybody open if they had Kevin Durant. So that's why I think that Warriors team would easily dismantle this Thunder's team. And I even think last year's Celtics would do a good job. Last year's Celtics fully healthy was one of the best teams I've ever seen. Easily. Top 15 all time for a single season. All right. Let's move on to awards. Dumpster fire of the week. We have Wolves Thunder Game 5. The Wolves absolutely fell apart. And that was nothing they did wrong. The Thunder just really, really wanted it. And I think the Wolves knew they were kind of out of it. Now, seat jumper game of the week. We have Wolves Thunder Game 4, surprisingly. The final score was 128-126. The Wolves had a chance to tie the game, but the Thunder were able to come up with a clutch steal last second and stop it. And from the couch MVP, obviously Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He won conference finals MVP and he's won MVP. And he might be the first MVP to win an NBA finals MVP since, well, not NBA finals, to win an NBA finals, period, at, since Steph Curry in 2015. All right, let's continue with the cheap seat report. So recently, there's been a lot of speculation about whether Cooper Flagg is a good or great player. I am one of these judgmental people who has been very skeptical, but here's the conclusion I come to. He will be a good player in the NBA, but I do not think he will be an MVP. And why do I say that? Well, I can see him making an NBA all defensive team, maybe an all NBA team. Most definitely will be an all-star at some point. But it's the fact that he is viewed as a Swiss Army knife. He can do everything good, but there's nothing that he does insanely great. With Victor Wembanyama, who everybody has considered a generational prospect, they consider Cooper Flagg one, which I don't think he is. And that's no shot at him. I just think Wemby's hype was far exceeding of Cooper Flagg's at this point. What Wemby could do is he could block shots. That was the thing he was insane at. And he was also insane at being an overall scorer. Now with Cooper Flagg, he's good at everything. He's great at defense. He's better at defense than he is on anything on offense. And I think using him as that in the NBA will be pretty good. And I think he is obviously the best domestic prospect since Kevin Durant. People could say it was Anthony Edwards. People could say it was probably Cade Cunningham because I think he was good. But I think Cooper Flagg would do good in the NBA, just not great Hall of Fame levels. Maybe. Who knows? But if anything, I think Cooper Flagg's best comparison for the NBA, people say LeBron James. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say a player like Kevin Durant offense type stuff with Kevin Durant's offensive game kind of combined with what Kawhi Leonard was able to do on defense. Kawhi Leonard, for those of you who don't know, is a two-time Defensive Player of the Year and probably one of the he's in my top 10 for best defenders of all time. He was probably the only player who was capable of guarding LeBron effectively. One-on-one, that is. But otherwise, I think Cooper Flagg is not generational. He is the best domestic product, but generational is Victor Wembanyama. And speaking of the alien himself, I believe the Spurs next year will be a playoff team. I think the record will be anywhere between 47 to 51 wins, depending on how the rest of the conference is, and if Wemby can stay healthy. And it all hinges on him staying healthy. I think he will win Defensive Player of the Year easily next year if he stays healthy. And I think with the improvement in Rookie of the Year, Stephon Castle, and whatever they decide to do with that second overall pick, whether it be traded to get another superstar or anything like that. And they already have De'Aaron Fox coming back, and he's definitely the fastest player in the NBA. They should definitely make the playoffs. All right, next up, we got to talk quickly about Caitlin Clark's injury. So that is the worst thing that could have happened to the WNBA. Her jerseys and anything with her name on it accounts for 25% of their sales. That is insane. That's probably the best since Michael Jordan. And her cinematic rival with Angel Reese was also good for the sport. And I think without her, the WNBA is going to suffer rating drops dramatically. And hopefully the Fever are able to win without her and get to the playoffs. Otherwise, the WNBA is in kind of a crap hole right now because they better be. I'm telling you right now, the Fever better be doing everything they can to get Caitlin Clark back. Everything. All right, so next up real quick, I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders. So I've heard during OTAs he was the best quarterback there. And I've had a lot of questions come to me on, do you think Shedeur Sanders will start next year? I do not think so. I think they're going to start Joe Flacco and give it a minute, give Shedeur Sanders a minute to learn from him. But I think what's going to happen is Shedeur is going to demand to go into the game, and as soon as Flacco messes up, whether it be in the first few weeks or latter half, I think he'll go in, and then from then on, he'll be the starter. I think he's the best quarterback they have. I think, obviously, dropping Deshaun Watson would be a smart idea. I think Dillon Gabriel, no offense to him, he was in college for a really, really long time, and he's very short. And Speaking of college, we have recently gotten our two new faces of college football, Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Incredible stuff, mind you. But I think the best prospect out of those two is definitely Jeremiah Smith. Don't get me wrong, I am an Alabama fan. Now, I love Ryan Williams, but Jeremiah Smith is probably the best wide receiver prospect to me since Randy Moss. And I think he will translate really well to the NFL. I think he should be drafted right now, me personally. And that's one of my arguments that I think the NFL should maybe consider lowering its draft standards. So players like Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith get in early, even though I know their body's still developing. Well, that's it from the cheap seats. This is Charlie Jimenez signing off.